Democrats. Hard to say.
Well, top of five, Ken Green says not on the GOP side. What about among Democrats?
Oh, absolutely. If you ask the question, are you concerned about the related issues of clean energy and global warming, it becomes a top-tier issue for Democrats, also for independents. If you ask about support for the policies that will make a difference to address the global warming problem, to bring us to a clean energy future, across the board, Democrats, Republicans, independents, very, very strong support for things like making our cars go further than a gallon of gas, cleaning up our power plants and relying more on renewables and efficiency, putting a cap on emissions, global warming pollution emissions, to really cut global warming emissions in that way as well. So the policy support is across the board. It's probably a higher priority issue among Democrats and independents when you talk about the policies that are needed to fix this problem, support across the board.
But as Ken Green just noted, like ethanol in Iowa, this is a big, complicated country with a lot of different priorities. Are the Democratic candidates as likely to talk about this in Michigan as they are in California?
You know, absolutely. In fact, just take an example. Senator Obama went to Michigan, addressed auto executives, and talked about why we need to raise fuel economy standards. I think that's one of the key differences between this election cycle on the Democratic side and the past cycles. Vice President Gore, he understood this issue, but kind of was advised not to talk about it, and he didn't really talk about it that much. Senator Kerry totally understood these issues, but it was not, he said he talked about it every day, but the voters didn't hear it. This cycle is very different. All the major Democratic candidates are talking about it every day. The voters are hearing it. The voters are hearing it, and they're hearing that it's a top priority, because that's key. We want to make sure that the next president who comes into the White House doesn't just have a good policy on their website, but in fact has an issue that they've talked about, engaged voters in, and therefore comes into the White House with a mandate for real change.
Ken Green, two states where global climate change awareness seems to be high are Florida and California, with Republican governors and a field of candidates that aren't bringing up the issue all that much, and some, like Tom Tancredo, Duncan Hunter, out now doubting whether the syndrome is actually gripping the earth or not. Mm-hmm. Can those governors in key electoral states as well pull the party somewhere?
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen. Certainly, the Governor Schwarzenegger has really thrown his weight behind greenhouse gas emission reductions, and it's going to be an interesting challenge to see how he reconciles that when Republicans come into California who have a less stringent position, if they're going to be able to pull the Republican base toward the Republicans who are not likely to just walk up and match the governor's prescription. Both of those states, of course, while they have Republican governors, those governors are not on the hard Republican end of the spectrum. They have positions that are more akin to the Democrats, Governor Schwarzenegger's environmental position being one of them. Clearly, they're splitting their positions. They're not single-ticket voters. They're looking for single-ticket voters.
But at the moment, can you run in the GOP primary race without a well-crafted global climate change policy?
I think you can for the moment, but I think that's going to change. If the Democrats do continue to make this a daily issue, I think the Republicans are going to be driven to respond. They're going to have to reach down for a concrete counter-proposal that embodies more conservative approaches to the issue, but they're going to have to move toward acknowledging the severity of the issue, the importance of the issue to the voters, and the primacy of picking and enacting a set of policies that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I think that will happen.
What about on the Democratic side? Are there campaigns that have made more of a priority than others who have sort of pulled the other candidates in their party along?
You know, Ray, the good news is, again, all the major party candidates today have made it a priority and have strong, comprehensive plans. At the beginning of this year, that wasn't true. What we've seen over the past 9 months is a competition among the candidates to make it a priority and to put a strong plan forward together. First out of the box, quite frankly, was John Edwards. He had the first comprehensive plan. We applauded him for that. Right now, if you look at the targets, as your setup piece showed, all of them now support mandatory emissions and raising fuel economy standards for cars. Governor Richardson, to his credit, has the most aggressive targets for 2050. He supports 90% reductions rather than 80, and has the most aggressive targets for raising fuel economy for cars. So there are some differences, but overall, most importantly, all of them are making it a priority. All of them are talking about it every day with voters, and I think each of them is wanting that voters hear that message, so that's part of what they vote on as they're choosing the next candidate.
Are the Democratic candidates more ready to use the power of government and the authority of the president to do some of these things, Ken Green?
I really don't think so. I suspect what you're going to have is a race toward the most aggressive targets that in the campaign. And you're seeing a race toward levels of reductions that are really unrealistic in terms of any possibility of achievement. And then when they get into office, much as with the Clinton administration, even though they have talked a good fight about climate change, they're going to suddenly be confronted with the economic realities and the costs of imposing their policies and the give and take of Capitol Hill politics.
Let me get a quick response from Gene. Are some of these targets as hard to reach as Ken Green would indicate in your view?
No, not at all. In fact, what we need to do is really rely on good old American ingenuity and know-how. If you do this right, it's good for jobs, it's good for the economy, it's good for national security, it's good for consumers, and yes, it's also good to save the planet. This is a win, 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 win if we do it right. And if we don't do it now, if we don't start now, it's going to cost much more later. So it's smart policy, smart to be on the right side of this.
Gene Karpinski, Ken Green. Gentlemen, thank you both.
Thank you.